All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to be actually taking a look at multiplying and dividing inequalities. Sorry, I just wanted to take a look at something. And I'm actually going to have you come down here. We're going to start with the steps first today. And our first step is to cancel the coefficient like we normally would, right? If it's multiplying, you divide. If it's dividing, you multiply. So cancel the coefficient. Our third step, we're going to skip to for a second. Our third step is to graph it. But this is a new thing, and this is something that was different than when we did equations. Because in equations, an equal sign, everything, you can flip those around all you want. But if the coefficient is negative, you flip the sign. And we'll take a look at why in a second. I'm not going to say sign, I'm sorry, I'm going to say symbol. Alright, so let's go up here and see what we got going on. So in number 1, 4x is greater than 12. Nothing's negative. I'm going to solve this like normal. So to cancel the 4, I have to divide. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So x is greater than 3. Graphing it like we've been practicing. So 3, 4, 5. 2 smaller. Put my circle at 3. I'm going to check to see if there's a line. No line, which means it stays open. I need numbers that are greater than 3, which means I'm going to go to the right. All right, so just like we practiced yesterday, just like we practiced the day before that. Now, for number 2, so even if the coefficient is being divided by, that's okay. So I have dividing by -6. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by -6. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So that means y, and this is going to be -30. But because this coefficient was negative, that means that my sign isn't going to stay greater than, it's going to flip to less than. And that's the new part here, and that's a difference than what we were doing before. So when I put my numbers on my number line, we're still going to have -30, -29, -28. Because remember, you have to get closer to 0 here, which means this is -31 and -32. I am going to put an open circle at -30. I'm going to check, does it have to be filled in? No. So then I need it to be less than -30, which is things like -31, -32, and so on. All right. For number 3, so I have to cancel the -5. It's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide both sides by -5, which is going to be b and -2. My coefficient is negative, which means it's going to go from a less than to a greater than. So, -2, -1, 0, -3, -4. Open circle. I'm going to check no or equal to sign, so it's going to stay open. And we need it to be greater than -2, so it's going to go to the right. Now, you can always check it, so I'm going to talk about that. So let's say you forgot, I'm going to do a little check. So I'm going to put in -1. So I'm going to put in -5 times -1, and I want to make sure that that's less than 10. Right? Just like we did a check before, but you pick a different number, not the one that's colored in. So -5 times -1 is 5, and 5 is truly less than 10. So it checks. If I hadn't flipped the sign, okay, let's pretend I didn't flip the sign. And I'm going to, you don't have to write this part down, but just watch and listen. I'm going to pick -4, because otherwise, if I hadn't flipped the sign, I would have totally shaded towards the -4. Well, if I do that, -5 times -4, well, -5 times -4 is +20. And +20 is not less than 10. Right? That means I did something wrong. And the part that was wrong was flipping the sign. So that's one reason why we do it. All right, let's take a look over here at number 4. N divided by 3 is less than 15. I have to cancel the 3, so I'm going to multiply. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Less than 45. I didn't have a negative coefficient, so I didn't have to worry about flipping anything. So on my number line, we have 45, 40, oops. Let's try that again. We have 45, 46, 47, 43, 42. I'm going to put my circle in. I'm going to check, does it have the line? No, so it stays open. M is less than 45, so that's going towards, I totally skipped 44. Sorry about that. How about 44, 43? That makes more sense. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to be shading towards the numbers that are smaller. So now in number 5, here's my M, so I'm going to divide both sides by 6. Now, the coefficient is what we're looking at. The fact that this is a negative over here, the negative 66, has 0 to do with how I solve the problem. Because the 6 is a positive, my symbol stays the same direction. So we're going to put negative 11, negative 10, negative 9, negative 12, negative 13. Again, please be careful with those negatives on the number line. Put my circle in, check, does it have the line? No, so I don't fill it in. Greater than negative 11 means I'm going towards the right. For number 6, now here's one where my variable's on the other side, which means that's another thing I have to think about, but this is a not equal to. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4, which gives me 80 is not equal to C. So put my numbers, 80, 81, 82, 79, 78. Open circle, not equal to means you go both directions, because it can be anything except 80. All right, let's see. If A is a negative integer, then which of the following sentences below is true? All right, well, again, I'm going to let A be negative 2, just to try to see. So if I put negative 2 in, 5 times negative 2, well, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Negative 10 is not greater than 5, so that's no, that one's not true. If I put negative 2 in, we're going to have 5 times negative 2 less than negative 2. Well, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10, and that one truly is less. Negative 10 is less than negative 2. All right, writing an inequality, the product means multiply of x and 4, so we write that as 4x greater than 9. Didn't ask me to solve it. X divided by negative 3 is at least. At least means that's the smallest it can be, but it can be bigger. So greater than or equal to 1. And again, you can always go back to the very first page of notes to see if that, if you're not sure about those. All right, any questions? Bring them to class. Have a good night.